This is version 1 of Prosper Sustainably's ETEP training video on common and recurring objectives within an ETEP strategic work plan. An ETEP strategic work plan is a tribal environmental plan, or TEP. An ETEP strategic work plan, or TEP, is a major component of an EPA tribal environmental plan, or ETEP. However, keep in mind that a full ETEP will include other components which can be further explained by your GAP grant project officer. During this training, I will describe some common and recurring objectives that you will find within your ETEP strategic work plan that was designed by Prosper Sustainably. So we are going to start here on the ETEP strategic work plan tab of the spreadsheet, and in this case, to focus on just the we're going to scroll down to the objectives table and just go through some of the common objectives. Common and recurring objectives, I'm going to go and filter down just to the climate change section right now, because that was the main example that I was using for these. So in this case, there are some objectives. There's certain objectives that are repeating year in and year out. And you want to account for these repetitive activities year in and year out so that you can allocate sufficient funding, staffing, and other resources to accomplishing these objectives. If this is not done, then these activities may be overlooked and you may end up not allocating sufficient time and resources to these, and you may find that you don't have enough time and resources to accomplish other objectives that you've planned for that same year. So let me go through the main ones. There are multiple recurring objectives. These are just the most common ones, but other ones that may be recurring are things like monitoring. The other ones are programmatic. These are kind of more specific to. The other ones are more like kind of media specific. These are more general activities that will be recurring, and can be found under most priority program areas. So the very first one that's recurring on this sheet, as you can, that I'm going to talk about, is one that's related to collaboration. So this particular objective is participate in local/state/federal forums to obtain information and pursue partnerships on climate change issues and opportunities that relate to annual objectives. This is something that under a lot of program areas, whether it's water, whether it's air, whether it's waste management, you may find yourself sending staff to these local forums to obtain information and pursue partnerships to address key issues and opportunities that the tribe is facing. So this particular activity could be included under other areas as well, such as air or water. And in most of the ETEPs I've worked on, it is included under those too. And you would just substitute these words right here. So you change this to air resources, or that's what it would say under the air one as well. So you would have one of these possibly under almost every single area that it makes sense for. It doesn't make sense for every single area. Like, you're not going to have this for the general area. You may not have it for education outreach. It doesn't really, it may not make sense to pursue these types of partnerships for general education outreach, maybe specific education outreach, but maybe you will. So if it's education outreach related to climate change, then those would be included as well. So the climate change, education outreach, related to climate change would actually be incorporated under pursuing this particular activity. So the second common activity that I'm going to go through is developing, testing, and evaluating and delivering education outreach literature, materials, and activities on climate change issues and opportunities related to annual objectives. Again, very generalized. I do a general education outreach objective because if every little education outreach activity is included in this ETEP, it's just going to become too lengthy and unwieldy. And the details of the education outreach activities are going to be included in your work plans. So it might be your GAP work plan, it may be your AIR work plan, so you can go there and see the specific stuff. But you can see that it also says see combined annual education and outreach plan. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But so this is kind of, this is so that when you're planning for the upcoming years, you can account for how many resources are going to have to go into this, how much funding, how much staff time, what are the expenses. So that's a recurring activity. So for each of these, for all the activities I'm talking about, you'll see this for 2016. You'll see the same thing repeated for 2017, 2018, and 2019. So as I'm updating the plan, and at the end of 2016, I would archive this, and then I would just change it maybe to 2020, just because you're going to want this activity is most likely going to be occurring in 2020 as well. Same thing here, too. Another recurring activity is identify, pursue, and secure funding for 2017 ETEP Climate Change Priority Program Objectives. And this too has an annual funding plan that can help make sure you're allocating sufficient time and resources to these. It's challenging sometimes to know what funding sources you're going to go after. But so you'll notice in this case, in 2016, you are looking at the 2017 objectives. That's usually because it takes sometimes almost a year to apply for and secure additional funds. So just like coming up, or in November, December of 2016, you'll be applying for your fiscal year 2017-18 funds. So you're doing that a year ahead of time. So in this case, when you're identifying when you're developing this funding plan, or the funding sources, or what you're going to be going after funding for, you're going to look at the 2017 objectives to develop the strategy of which funding resources you're going to go after. So if I have that I want to, in 2017, it shows that I'm going to develop a climate change adaptation plan. Then in 2016, I need to pursue funding to accomplish that objective. And if I don't pursue funding in 2016 to do that, then I'm going to have to shift that planning activity back to 2018 or later, because I'm not going to have the funding to do it. Another important activity that should be recurring for every single priority program area is annually reviewing and updating your ETEP priority program area, in this case climate change, priority program area goals and objectives, obtaining input from relevant departments, leaders, and other stakeholders. That process is the process of reviewing and updating this particular spreadsheet that you're looking at right now. And it's a time-consuming, it's a very, very important process. It's time-consuming, but it's time well spent. If you and your staff take the time to go through this process, you will make sure you stay on track. You will accomplish your goals and objectives in the most effective and efficient manner possible. And so that investment of time will end up saving a lot of time and money, but it needs to be done on an annual basis. So this is an activity that's repeated annually for each priority program area. So you're going to see this for your air, for your water, for your waste management, for education outreach, whatever priority program areas you have, you will see this for every single year in each priority program area. Preparing and submitting progress reports, financial reports, and grant drawdown requests for efforts and activities under the climate change program area is another activity that is going to apply to other program areas, and it's going to be an ongoing one that you're going to see every year. So these are the main general activities. Most of these you'll see across different areas. So if you went to air, you'd see one. If you went to education outreach, you'd see one. If you went to general, and then let's filter this too. So these are in order. So as you'll see, all of these you'll see for each year. So annually review and update the ETEP for climate change, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. When you review and update this, you'll add 2020 and then archive 2016 for this as well. As I mentioned, some of these activities have plan, combined annual plans. So in this case of education outreach, there's an objective to develop a combined annual plan for education and outreach activities across all 2016 ETEP priority program areas that includes projected staffing, timing, costs, areas of focus, interdepartmental events and collaboration opportunities, and or other considerations. So as of right now, I didn't flesh this ETEP out for years really beyond 2016 too much, but this would be an activity that you would see in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, something you want to do each year. You spend a little bit of time identifying what education outreach activities you're going to be doing for the year, and then updating this as you proceed as well. Then it can help make sure you're allocating your staffing and resources as efficiently and effectively as possible. There was two other ones. So one thing actually I didn't show on the other one too, let's go back to climate, was training. So there's a repeat activity for training as well. So obtain staff training to build skills and capacities related to climate change program area objectives. So instead of listing every single training you're going to, which again could make this cumbersome, you just look at the objectives, you pursue training related to those. If you need more details, you can have those and refer to those in your work plans. And this activity will be shown for every year, so 2016, 2017, 2018, and 19 as well. And this one also states that there should be a combined annual training plan so that you can understand and see all these things in one place. So let's go to the general program area where we'll see the funding and training plans. So develop a combined annual funding plan for all 2017 ETEP objectives that includes possible funding sources, due dates, projected staffing, timing, and costs and other considerations. And then same thing for training plan, develop a combined annual training plan for all ETEP objectives that includes projected staffing, timing, cost, areas of focus, and other resource considerations. So this funding plan or this training plan encompasses all priority program areas. It's not just limited to one. And same thing with the funding plan, it encompasses all training areas. And when you have your annual education outreach plan, that should also include all areas. It's a combined annual plan of all areas as well. There's one last thing I want to point out here that can be helpful in managing these objectives is for these activities that are, let's undo this filter right here. Let's put these in alphabetical order so we can see these things next to one another. So for these activities that are recurring, it can be helpful. You may not want, if you're showing this to your tribal council, you may not, and you want to make this as concise as possible, you may want to filter out the repeat activities. So it's okay for them to see that your office is involved in annually reviewing and updating the ETEP strategic work plan once, but you don't necessarily want to have it show for every single year. You can just somehow indicate that that's recurring activity rather than making the sheet longer by showing the same activity. So one column I entered into the spreadsheet was repeat, yes or no. And so this is for if the activity, the objective is a repeat, then you put yes. So in 2016, this is the first instance of this annual review and updating of the ETEP strategic work plan for the climate change priority program area. That one is not a repeat yet because it is the first instance of it. However, in 2017, it is a repeat. It's the same exact activity, just in a later year. 2018 and 2019 are also repeats. So you can hit yes there. And let's say you're showing somebody the climate change spreadsheet. So you just have climate change activities in there. And, as of right now, it goes down, so many lines. It's zooming out some. So the spreadsheet's kind of long. As you can see, there's repeat activities in there. So one thing that can be done is you go to this repeat filter and you unselect all, and then you select blanks. So you filter out the yeses, and now those repeat activities are gone. So now there's less activities that your decision makers have to review, and they don't see the same activity over and over again. And you know, if you want, you can highlight the ones that are repeating so they know that it's actually occurring in the following year. So now this sheet that might have been printed out as 3 pages or 4 pages is probably only going to print out by like as 1 or 2 pages. So, you know, this particular plan is now that much less cumbersome. That is the end of this training video.